Does everybody have a mic? Yes. Great. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. We will go ahead and call this meeting to order. And we will start with the invocation, which we observe by a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thanks. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Bajent.
Here.
Clegg.
Here.
Halliburton.
Here.
Sanchez. Hobson. Woodings.
Here.
4 present, 2 absent.
Thanks. Next up, we have a request for approval, the city council minutes from the work session and evening meeting of April 13th.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move approval of the city council minutes of the work session and regular evening meeting of April 13th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Bajent.
Yes.
Clegg.
Yes,
Halliburton.
Yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thanks. Next up, welcome Celine. We see you through Zoom. We have under special business CAR 20-25, a reconsideration request.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. As you'll recall, you approved a rezone with a development agreement on March 30th for a 175-unit building at Boise Avenue and Protest Road. We received a request to reconsider your decision from Anna Marie Starkweather, which was in your packet this evening. It doesn't seem that any new information was submitted, so the planning team is recommending denial of the request. Ultimately, it's your decision, and if you approve, we'll be sure to go through those proper procedures. And with that, I'll be here if there's any other questions.
It appears as though there are no questions.
Madam Mayor, I'm not interested in moving for reconsideration. I don't know if anyone else is.
All right, I'm seeing, what is that, shaking of heads. So if no action is taken, then that is pretty much that the reconsideration is decided not to be taken up by council. So if the record would please reflect that. Great. Thank you, Celine, for joining us this evening. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Next up, we have the consent agenda. All items on the with an asterisk, are considered to be routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Right, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Bajent.
Yes.
Clegg.
Yes,
Halliburton.
Yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Right, next up, we have ordinances. Yes. Item 7 on the agenda, under first reading A, we have quite a few.
we do. Madam Mayor, I I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on the first reading be read by number and title only and filed for the second reading calendar.
Without objection?
ORD 16 and ordinance CAR 20-00024 for property located at 3805 North Cole Road, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property, particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance from R-1CH, single family residential with historic district overlay, to A-1H, open lands with historic district overlay, setting forth a reason statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date. ORD 17-21, an ordinance de-annexing 6.22 acres of certain lands and territory located within Boise, Ada County, Idaho, near Lake Moore subdivision, setting forth a reasoned statement in support of the de-annexation, directing the city engineer to lodge and file a legal description and map of the de-annexed lands and territory, directing that copies of this ordinance shall be filed with the Ada County Auditor, the Ada County Treasurer, the Ada County Assessor, the Ada County Recorder, and the Idaho State Tax Commission, providing that a copy of the legal description and a map of the de-annexed lands and territory be recorded with the Ada County Recorder and filed with the Ada County Assessor and the Idaho State Tax Commission as required by law and providing an effective date. ORD 19-21, an ordinance amending the development code regarding specific procedures, section 11-03-03, including changes to the posting requirements for specific application types, the radius of neighborhood meeting notice mailings, and the timeline for submittal of administrative variance applications. ORD 20-21, an ordinance repealing Boise City Code Title V, Chapter 1, and enacting a new Title V, Chapter 1 entitled Animals, providing a title, legal authority, scope, and purpose, defining terms, providing administrative provisions for animal control contractors and animal shelters, setting forth dog-specific licensing and regulations, prohibiting animals at large, setting forth non-commercial kennel licensing provisions, providing regulations for rabies vaccinations and animal quarantine, setting forth dangerous and potentially dangerous dog provisions, prohibiting certain exotic animals, setting forth animal nuisance regulations, prohibiting cruelty to animals, setting forth regulations regarding the use of animal traps, providing individuals from commanding animal to attack, prohibiting the interference with officials performing duties under this chapter, providing prohibitions for driving or riding animals or on undesignated public rights of way, setting forth Good Samaritan protections for animal rescue from unattended vehicles, providing for determination and forfeiture hearings and appeals, setting forth parental liability for minors owning animals, prohibiting the sale of commercially bred dogs and cats in retail stores, prohibiting the transfer of animals upon public property, setting forth the non-liability of the city for the acts of its contractors, providing penalty section, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date. ORD 21-21, an ordinance repealing Boise City Code Title II, Chapter 10, and enacting a new Title II, Chapter 10 Boise City Code entitled Office of Police Accountability, providing a title, establishing the Office of Police Accountability, providing a mission statement and goals, setting forth appointment of director, scope of authority, independence of the Office of Police Accountability, access to information and records, and cooperation. Specifying duties and responsibilities of the Office of Police Accountability, outlining transparency and reporting requirements, confidentiality of records and information requirements, and false report procedures, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Next up, we have second reading calendar.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on second reading calendar be read by number and title only and filed for the third reading calendar.
Without objection?
ORD 12-21, an ordinance CAR 20-00015 for property located at 3435 North 33rd Street, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property, particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance from R-1C, single family residential urban, to R-1 MD, town lot residential with design review overlay, setting forth a reasoned statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date. ORD 13-21, an ordinance CAR 20-00023 for property located at 1717 South Federal Way, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property, particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance, from medium density residential R-2 to multifamily residential with design review R-3D, setting forth a reasoned statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date. ORD 14 and ordinance CAR 20-000016 Williams Family Number 2 Trust for property located at 6506 North Eugene Lane, annexing 2.9 acres of certain lands and territory situated in Ada County, Idaho, adjacent and contiguous to the corporate limits of the city of Boise City. Establishing and determining the land use classification of said 2.9 acres as A-1 DA open lands with the development agreement. Setting forth a reasoned statement in support of such annexation and zone change, directing the city engineer to lodge and file a legal description and map for said annexed lands and territory. Providing that copies of this ordinance shall be filed with the Ada County Auditor, the Ada County Treasurer, the Ada County Assessor, and the Ada County Recorder, and the Idaho State Tax Commission. Providing that a copy of said legal description and map of said annexed lands and territory be recorded with the Ada County Recorder and filed with the Ada County Assessor and the Idaho State Tax Commission as required by law, and providing an effective date. ORD 15-21, an ordinance repealing Boise City Code Title 9, Chapter 12, and replacing it with Boise City Code Title 9, Chapter 12, moving, deconstruction, or demolition of buildings, adopting standards for the moving, deconstruction, and demolition of buildings, including material and waste management practices, permitting, administrative procedures and penalties, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. And next up, we have one ordinance on third reading.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that further reading of ORD 11-21 be dispensed with and the record reflect that it has been read for the third time in full.
Second. We have a motion, a second. Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Bajent.
Yes.
Clegg.
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries. ORD 11-21, an ordinance CAR 20-00004 for property located at 13984 West Jasmine Lane, Boise, Idaho 83713. Amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property, particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance, from open lands A-1 to general commercial with design review and development agreement C-2D DA, setting forth a reasoned statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that ORD 11-21 be approved.
Second. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Clerk, will you call the roll?
Bajent.
Yes.
Clegg.
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, now we are moving into the subdivisions and then public hearings after that. First off, we have Cody with us. Thanks for being here. For SOS 21-4.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. This item is a request to remove a temporary easement on the side yard of two homes located along Annette and Virginia Avenues. The easement and note was part of Moonbeam subdivision that was platted in 2003. The easement and note did require the area in question to subject as a turnaround until Annette Street was extended. As you can see, Annette Street has since been extended to Elder. That provides access back out to Victory Road to the north. So the concern with safety that was present when that note was in place no longer exists. As suggested, the note can be vacated at this time. That has been confirmed by the fire department in comments dated March 8th of this year. Removal of the easement will allow the homeowners to fully use their properties and perhaps remove a significant amount of paving that's no longer necessary. Should have no impact on other properties, including adjacent ones, and we're unaware of any opposition at this time. So with that, we are recommending approval of this application this evening. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Cody?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
did this ever act as a pathway in this neighborhood?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, not to my knowledge. I assume with that much paving, if it wasn't fenced off by default, it could have, but it was private property simply in that easement.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Just in the future, obviously, we would probably require a pathway with that much distance between the two roadway connections.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, certainly that is a fairly significant block length there.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else? All right. The applicant is Jason Newman. Is Jason with us? Welcome, Jason. Would you like him to address your question?
Madam Mayor, I believe, is it Justin?
Oh, it might be. Can you raise your little Zoom hand if you're here for this application?
Madam Mayor, I had just promoted him to do that, so he should be available with us here in just a moment.
Great. So it's Justin, not Jason.
I have Justin Newman.
That's great. Okay.
Signed in.
I just had the wrong name on here. Justin, if you're able to hear us, you should be unmuted. You might, if you want to address the council president's question, you're welcome to, or let us know anything else related to staff conditions and approval.
Madam Mayor, I'm sure that he is unmuted and should be able to speak.
All right, Justin, I'm not sure if, can he send you a note?
I believe he can, yes.
All right, we can't hear you, Justin, so you can type into the chat to Jamie, our clerk. Let her know if you're trying. There's also a phone number that you could call into. Or you could also tap into the chat. Did you have a question, Council President, that you needed him to address as well?
Madam Mayor, I guess my question would be, are the landowners intending to take the pavement back up, fence this off, or leave it pretty much the way it is with just the easement lifted?
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I don't have a message to Justin, and I have asked if he's.
Okay. You know what, I'm gonna propose that we pause this for a moment. While trying to fit, because I don't want to do this without him since he's there. So why don't we table this, move into the first public hearing item, and then if ever we hear from Justin, we can pick it back up again. Does that make sense?
Or
Okay,
do we need a motion to table it, or we can just, okay, good.
we're good. Okay, all right. With that, then we'll move into the first public hearing, which is ordinance 18-21, a surplus of real property located, is this related? Located near Lakemore subdivision. And I see Mary Grant and Rob. Floor is yours.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Tonight's public hearing, I can get, there we go. Tonight's public hearing is in support of declaring a parcel west of the West Boise Water Renewal Facility as surplus with the intention to transfer it to the city of Eagle for an extension of their park. I'll give you a really quick overview orientation to the parcel, and then Mary will talk you through the process. So quick overview of the site. I'm presuming everybody can see my screen. I always have
Yes,
to
we can
ask.
see it. Yep.
But over to the right, just to orient everybody, over to the right is the West Boise Water Renewal Facility. Toward the bottom is Chinden Boulevard. Eagle Road would be just off the picture, and then roughly the top of the picture is the south channel of the Boise River. The subject parcel is in red here. The green kind of squiggly line shows the property that the city will still maintain after this process. And the blue shows the existing parcels that would make up Eagle's Pamela Baker Park, and you can see that this would be extended to it. This parcel is part of an old gravel pit and is just a pond. You can see that we are not currently utilizing it. And as we think about the water renewal facility expansion plans, we don't see any use for this. This process is part of an older land trade agreement that dates back to 1998 and I think has been amended at least once since then. it really made some real wins, I think, for the whole community. One of the more recent wins was connecting up the green belt that runs along the river to Chinden Boulevard through a section that that we own is in yellow, that Eagle owns and maintains is in this peach salmon color. And then it extends on up through the Lakemore development up to Chinden Boulevard and provides that connection to the greenbelt for our residents south of Chinden. Maintains a good buffer space, a good transition space for the water between the water renewal facility and other uses. Allows Pamela Baker Park to be created, which in itself really serves as part of that buffer and transition zone. And then of course allows the Lakemore development to proceed. That's a quick overview. And for the complicated part of how the process needs to happen, I'll hand it over to Mary.
Thank you.
Mayor, council members.
Welcome.
This is just a overview of why we're here tonight in terms of what the process is for making sure we can go through. I would direct your attention primarily to Idaho Code 50-1402, which requires that we first declare the property of, or the value or minimum price, if any, of a property that we would like to have declared as surplus. If we're not declaring a particular value, then we can just provide an explanation of the intended exchange or conveyance for other than monetary consideration. Following that declaration and intent for a surplus, we do have to have this public hearing as part of our statutory requirements. The council already approved that declaration by resolution 1.
I'm so sorry. I'm glad you called though. It happened.
Were you able to mute him? Mary, Rob, sorry, I'll just pause you for a second to make sure that Justin knows we just heard you. We've moved on to another item. We will be back to your item as soon as this item is completed. I'm glad that you were able to get through. Okay, Mary, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council did already approve this declaration of the intent to declare this surplus by resolution 145-21 on March 30th. The findings are captured here on this slide. And for the sake of efficiency, I won't read those out to you, but basically overview of what Rob just outlined. Next, thank you, Rob. So what we've done is provided the first ordinance by statutory code 50-1403, where this is being exchanged to another governmental unit. It is affected by ordinance. And so we have prepared the first reading of the ordinance for council this evening. And we'll be available for any questions, but given that then following second and third readings, staff will undertake whatever additional steps are necessary to finalize the conveyance.
Thank you. Are there questions for?
My only question was whether or not any maintenance of the Greenbelt section was going to change. It looks like it's not, because the portion adjacent to this property is still going to be owned and maintained by the city of Boise. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, Council President Clegg, that is correct. The path that we own is still just inside of our property line. The transition really occurs right at that corner.
And I'm assuming, follow up if I might, Madam Mayor,
Of course.
that the pathway, the entire pathway is protected with an easement.
The Madam Mayor, Council President Clegg, I guess I would have to loop back to parks to see. I mean, they're both the section of the pathways are on our respective city properties, and then from beyond there, it is in public right of way. So the thing that I don't know is could the city of Eagle theoretically close this parkway? Or this pathway. I'd have to loop back and make sure that see if there's some sort of legal provision for that.
Not that we can control it, whether we go forward with this or not, but it just seemed like a question worth asking at this point. I assume, by establishing this, there must be some easement, but it would be good to know that.
We'll follow up with that and loop back.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, this is a public hearing, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Is anybody here in person or welcome back, or online that would like to testify on this?
Madam Mayor, I don't have anybody that's raising their hands.
Okay, all right. Well, if the record would be, please reflect that nobody has appeared to testify. We will, before we close, I'll just make sure there's nothing else anybody wants to ask. All right, with that, I'll close the public hearing.
With that, Madam Mayor, I would ask unanimous consent that ORD 1821 be read by number and title only and filed for the second reading calendar.
Is that a unanimous?
Isn't
consent
that,
process?
don't you have to read it now?
Yes.
Okay, without objection.
Yeah.
ORD 18-21, an ordinance reaffirming Boise City's declaration that certain real property owned by the city adjacent to Lakemore subdivision located in Boise, Ada County, Idaho, with an area of approximately 6.22 acres is underutilized or not used for public purposes, authorizing the conveyance of the defined real property to the city of Eagle for certain improvements, namely a buffer zone for the West Boise Water Renewal Plant, expanded park area, and a greenbelt connection, approving as to both form and content a special warranty deed to effect the conveyance, authorizing the mayor and city clerk respectively to execute and attest the warranty deed for and on behalf of the city of Boise, Idaho, authorizing and directing Boise city staff to do all things necessary to close the transaction and to convey the property to the city of Eagle and establishing an effective date.
Great, thank you. And so now that'll move. So for now on, we'll see this on the reading calendar for second and third reading.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks all. Thanks, Mary and Rob, for being with us.
Thank you.
We're going to return to the subdivision if Justin is still with us. This record says all over the place, Jason, so I apologize if it's Justin. Is he-
I'm here. Actually, my brother is Jason. I'm Justin. I'm just representing for him today.
Oh, great. Okay.
I apologize for
perfect.
the confusion and my technical difficulties over here.
Oh, no worries. Were you able, though, to hear the first part of the hearing where staff presented from our perspective the application and the council president asked the question about the use of the pavement right now?
Right. We intend to fence the property line and reclaim it as basically the side and backyard of the property. Since the road up north has been completed at this time. Is that what you meant, or were you asking if we were doing construction?
No, that was.
Go ahead, council president.
Thank you, Justin. I wondered, as this easement existed, was it ever used by neighbors, or did it just sit there unused?
People do walk through, they cut through the neighborhood there, and sometimes they leave trash or they let their dogs go. It's kind of like an alleyway between the four properties that are there. So we'd really like to, we have kind of a substandard yard, and so does the property behind us. When my brother purchased, he was really hoping to look forward to reclaiming that as his private property. And now that there is a road one block up, it seems like, all the sidewalks are in and it's safe to walk now. So I think we'd like to take it back as property, not for construction, but just as yard.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I think in a future application, we probably would ask that there be a public connection, but this was not done that way. And I don't believe we can ask it now. I just wondered what your plans were. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
So Justin, just to close the loop on this, are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
Yes, we would like to have that easement released. Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, if you're in agreement, then I'll make sure that are there other questions for the applicant? All right, thanks for calling in. I'm going to go ahead and close the hearing.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move approval of SOS 21-4 Boise City vacation of plat known and public utilities easement at 3358 South Annette and 3317 South Virginia.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just because Council President Clegg brought it up, I think it's always wonderful to have stuff on the record that for staff to explore stuff like this in the future. I certainly wouldn't want to ask this of any private property owner who didn't agree upon that at the very beginning, and that wasn't the intention. So certainly no reason to do anything different, but I appreciate bringing it up to the staff to explore things in the future.
Great, thank you. That is it. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Agent,
Yes.
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Great. So now we'll move back into the regular public hearings. We have CR 20-4 at 2007 South Saturn Way. Welcome, Cody.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I just realized this is the first time in over a year where I'm talking to everybody in person. There's nobody in the cloud talking to me or anything. That's really kind of a cool feeling. This item is a request to rezone just under 8 acres from C1 or neighborhood commercial to C3 or service commercial with design review. The property is located along Saturn Way, just south of Overland and just west of Costco. The change to the C3 zone is intended to support commercial development that would include a self-service storage facility. As noted in the packet, the commission did hear this item on March 8th and without opposition unanimously recommended approval of the request. The property is designated commercial on the land use map where C3 is a permissible zone. The C3 zone does allow a few more intense uses than the existing zone. In this case, the commission did find that to be appropriate. The site's certainly in a transitional location. We actually have industrial zoning to the south and to the east, commercial development to the north, and then residential zoning to the west. The primary concern or the main concern with the rezone was really the interface with that single family residential neighborhood to the west. Those impacts are mitigated by a subdivision plat that prohibits any vehicular access out to Ash Park. There's also an opportunity to ensure appropriate transition through the required design review process. With that, we can look at appropriate use of screens, sound walls, enhanced landscaping, and appropriate light treating. In conclusion, the commission again did find the rezone to be consistent with the standards for approval. That included policies specific to the Southwest planning area and projects in the airport influence area. And so with that, we are recommending approval of the rezone this evening. Thank you.
Are there questions for Cody?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
not a question, but for council members who haven't been here very long, we've dealt with this property probably 4 times in the time that I've been on city council. And despite our housing shortage at the moment, it's really not a place where we can talk about housing because of the airport influence zone. And so while I'm not a terribly excited fan of this kind of a use, it looks like it is something that can finally get this property into some use. So just a little history for those who didn't know it.
I was wondering that too. Is this the RV park?
What's that?
Is this an RV park?
I can't.
Sorry. Oh, I guess we could ask Cody. Was this was near or was it an RV park is one of the questions.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I believe one of the iterations did have a recreational vehicle park, yes. And it's bounced back and forth with commercial zoning, industrial zoning as well over the years.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, other questions for Cody? Well, now we will have the applicant. Welcome. Nice to see you in person.
Madam Mayor, council members, Penelope Constantikis, Post Office Box 405, Boise, Idaho 83701. I don't really have much to add. I just wanted to point out that we do have some commercial a space that will be along Saturn Way. So a portion of the site will be the condominium storage, but we're also adding commercial uses along the street frontage. And other than that, I really don't, I'm happy to answer questions. I don't know that there's anything that we need to talk about.
It looks as though there is not.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. I have nobody signed up in advance. The South Cole Neighborhood Association is the neighborhood association of record. So I want to first check to see if anybody from the neighborhood association is online.
Madam Mayor, not as identified in our agenda.
All right, great, thank you. And then anyone online that would like to testify on this item?
Madam Mayor, I don't have anyone with their hand raised at the moment.
All right. And anyone in the building would like to testify? Okay. All right. With that, will the record please reflect that there was no testimony on this item. So unless there are further questions for Cody, I'll go ahead and close this. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this public hearing.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move approval of CAR 21-04.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Agent,
Yes.
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Next up, we have CAR 21-1. I'm just looking at this because there's so many different names that are presenting. Penelope, great to see you. Have a good night. Cody, are you presenting
Yes, Madam Mayor.
for staff?
Yep.
Okay, great. And then because it also says in my guide, Mary Ann and John, but they're the applicants, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. So if we have Mary Ann Dick or Mary Ann Payne, we're not certain, or John Price or both. We have you listed as applicants, so after Cody presents, we'll see if you're online and want to talk. Then the Bora Neighborhood Association is the association of record. And then I don't have anybody signed up in advance, so if you're online wanting to talk on this one after the applicant presents, go ahead and raise your hand for that. Cody, thanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. This is a request to rezone 1.75 acres from R2 or medium density residential to R3 or multifamily residential with the design review overlay. The site is located at the southeast corner of Allenbaugh and Franklin Road, just east of Bishop Kelly High School. The change in zoning is requested to accommodate a 42-unit planned residential development. The existing zone would allow only 25 dwellings. The commission did hear both the rezone and plan unit development on March 8th. At that time, they approved the plan unit development and recommended approval of the rezone. The decision on the plan unit development was not appealed, so it is only the rezone that's before you this evening. As you can see in the packet, the commission did find the rezone consistent with the standards for approval. The property is designated mixed use, in which the R3 is a permissible implementing zone. The change in zoning doesn't really introduce new allowances, mainly the allowance for that higher density residential use. And again, the commission did find that appropriate in this location. The project is on the edge of a neighborhood at the corner of an arterial and collector roadway on an existing bus route. In short, it includes many of the features that would make higher density residential housing appropriate. Surrounded uses also include a school, offices, assisted living, even industrial uses some distance across Franklin Road to the north. From our perspective and the commission's, there was no apparent issues in terms of compatibility of use or density. Now, there was some public concern expressed at the commission hearing. Some of the common things we hear with a project like this: noise, traffic, and design. However, in terms of noise and traffic, all traffic will actually be routed out to the major roadways, resulting in minimal impact on the neighborhood to the south. The design itself will still be subject to the design review process. And then ultimately the buildings and landscaping on this vacant lot should actually provide some degree of buffering from the noise of Franklin Road. So with that, ultimately, the commission did find the rezone to be consistent with the ordinance criteria and recommended approval. We are recommending you adopt their recommendation and approve the rezone this evening. Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions for Cody?
Madam Mayor. Cody, I thought I saw a couple questions or comments about height when I was looking at this. And I guess I'm just curious the difference between the R2D and the R3D. And I guess my understanding, I think it's the same, but I'm not sure if that's correct or not.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, the allowance is actually, it's 35 feet in the R2 zone, the existing zone, and it is 45 feet in the new R3 zone. However, give me just a second here. I believe the proposed or the approved buildings are at the height of the existing zone. So let's see. Yeah, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, to the peak of the roof, and we actually averaged to the average of the highest gable. The peak of the roof was 40 feet. So the new buildings that were approved are right at that 35 feet that's allowed in the R2 zone. Now, with absent a development agreement, there's a chance that this project wouldn't materialize and that the zone would allow a building up to the 45 feet.
Okay, thank you, Cody.
All right, thanks, Cody. Next up, I see, well, the name is John Price, but it does not look like John Price. But the applicant, it looks like you're with us. Would you go ahead and jump in? Oh, there's John Price. Okay.
So in terms of the project, Cody did describe it well. After our city council or after our design, our planning and zoning meeting, what happened? We did go and meet with the neighborhood. Before the meeting, I had not had any response from the neighborhood meeting and no one had attended. So I hadn't had an opportunity to work with the neighborhood, which I feel is a very important part of any project. But post them coming forward at planning and zoning, John Price and I went and met with the association. There's a 55 and older community to the south of this development. And we met with them and had about an hour-long conversation that addressed their concerns. And I think by the end of it, I think just, talking it through and incorporating what they needed and listening to their concerns alleviated a lot of anxiety. And I think people are afraid of what they don't know. And when they sat down and could talk to me about it, we even went as far as addressing that there are some of their amenities they were concerned would be used by the tenants. And we said, and the parking on the street and just, general policing things. And we said, we'd be happy to incorporate it in our lease. We also met with the hospital next door. Their major concern was parking. And I said, we can address that and we'll put it in their lease and we'll educate them from the very beginning that, that they're, the neighborhood is not welcoming them parking on their property. So we, there's a common road that I would also need to address with the hospital adjacent, and we're going to put an agreement together to work that out. So I think once we had an opportunity to go through the meetings and talk to the neighbors, I think we've gone a long way to alleviate their concerns. Do you have anything to add, John?
No, nothing to add. In our meetings, particularly with the single family homeowners to the south, they just had a lot of concerns that are typical with multifamily, and we pretty much talked through those, and I think made them a lot more comfortable with what's going on. So I think we've done the best we can do.
So I'm happy to answer any questions, and we're pretty, engaged in this project, and we want to work with the neighborhood and the city to make it a successful project. I feel like housing is a need. It's a brilliant location for apartments. It's got great adjacency to the freeway, to services, to schools, and employment. And if the light rail ever comes through, it's right across from that. And it will have beautiful views of the mountains, which is always I like that part too. So
Great, thank you. Appreciate your work with the neighbors too. Are there any questions for the applicant? I don't know if you can see us, but people are shaking their heads. So hold tight. We're going to see if there's anybody here from the neighborhood association and then for the public hearing, and then we'll be back.
Madam Mayor, no one currently has their hands raised. To
All right. If anybody would like to testify, now's your time to raise your hand.
Madam Mayor, no one has raised their hands.
All right. Well, we are back already, Marianne. Is there anything that you would like to add to what you said? Or it sounds like you're in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report. And there were questions that we had for you. All right. Great. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I guess just applaud the applicant for working with this neighborhood, because clearly there were a lot of concerns at the planning and zoning level, and they appear to have been met. With that, I would move approval of CAR 21-1, rezone from R2D to R3D.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I just want to tack on to what the council president said. This is a fantastic place for multifamily residential. It's close to schools, it's close to workplaces. This is a corridor that can handle increased traffic. You have the safety aspect of it being right by a fire station. I just applaud the applicant for having so much thought put into this development. And you're right, we need housing very badly. So thank you for bringing us some.
Excellent. Well, with that, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Bajent,
Yes.
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Have a good night. All right, next up, we have CR 20-21, back with Cody.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. This last item is a request to rezone a roughly 1 acre site from R1 AS or single family residential with the Sycamore overlay to R1 CS DA or single family residential, still with the Sycamore overlay and a development agreement. That was a lot to babble on about. The site is located at the northwest corner of Taft and Hawthorne, just off of State Street. As indicated in your packet, the purpose of the rezone is simply to adjust the property line between two oddly configured parcels. The result will be two regularly shaped buildable parcels. The northern parcel, as it exists today, is smaller than the minimum allowed in either the R1A or R1B zones. Thus, the request for R1C zoning. The rezone to R1C will allow the property to be divided, as you can see on the screen. As you can see in the record, there were concerns, in fact, expressed at the commission hearing, specifically with an allowance for increased density. Now, the R1C zone would typically allow up to 8 units per acre, where the existing zone does only allow 2. To address this concern, we directed the applicant or encouraged the applicant to include a development agreement with the rezone. That agreement will cap the density of the property at 4.8 units an acre, or that allowed in our R1B zone. I recognize this does get a bit confusing, but there are a few things at play here. The Sycamore neighborhood plan suggests an increase in density along Taft is appropriate and specifically references 4 units per acre, as you can see in this old map. Similarly, the land use map designates this same area along Taft as suburban. That also suggests additional density might be appropriate. And again, the R1C zone is permissible in this designation. However, that is again a bit at odds with that neighborhood plan. So from our perspective, the R1C zoning with the density limit of the R1B zone does strike a good balance. While only 2 homes are contemplated at this time, the agreement would allow a maximum of 3 units on the overall property in the future. It also requires any new access to be taken from Hawthorne. That's largely for safety reasons, as Taft is a collector roadway, and we generally try to discourage access from those roadways when possible. The 3 units on this corner is actually very similar to the arrangement that exists across Hawthorne Street to the east. We do have a mixed-use plan unit development with a church and 2 small houses that was recently approved to the west. And then north of this property is a multifamily residential development. So the decision before you this evening is only a rezone. If approved, it would effectively allow 1 more home on the property than exists today. As previously stated, this is supported by the land use map and other policies in the comprehensive plan. It's certainly in a transitional location on a corner lot with a collector roadway. It's also less than 1/4 mile from State Street corridor to the south. We do recognize the concerns and acknowledge the maximum density of the R1C zone might not be appropriate in this location, but we believe that has been addressed with the included development agreement. So with that, we believe that 1 additional home that would be allowed makes sense in this situation and are recommending approval of the rezone this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Cody?
Madam Mayor, Cody, you might not know the answer to this question. It's kind of a weird one. And it's just that it's kind of a funny lot shape existing right now. I'm curious if you know any history, if there was something different on it that caused it to be shaped like that in the first place. If not, that's fine.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, I wondered the same thing, and you'll know, I don't know the answer to that. I do know that the property right across Hawthorne to the east is arranged much the same way. However, it actually already has 3 units on the oddly configured parcels.
Yep, that's it.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
So Cody, just to be clear for the record, by doing a rezone with a development agreement, we're actually easing the burden, regulatory burden on this property of the things they'd have to do in order to develop that 3rd lot. Easier than zoning to RB and then having to do a PUD or variance. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, that's correct. With the safeguards that the development agreement also provides the neighborhood, that there never would be more than 3 homes, short of coming back to council and modifying the agreement.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Dave, I see that you've joined us. Welcome. Oh, you're muted.
Thank
There
you.
you go. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can address the question that came up before for Cody on why the odd configuration.
That'd be great.
Yes, back in the day, I think back in the 40s, the lot was originally square shaped, and the owners sold off a portion for the house that was built on Taft. And I think the same thing did happen across the street, as Cody said. And other than that, I really don't have anything to add. I thought he did a very nice job presenting.
Wonderful. Thank you. Are there additional questions for Dave?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Good to see you, Dave. This is Elaine Clegg. So I don't have a big question. I just wanted to say hello because we see so few people anymore. But my question is this: you have a church to the west, and it has 2 small houses on it. Are those houses actually occupied, or does the church leave them empty? I was just curious.
There's a counseling center that has been active that the church uses. So that's what the houses are used for.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Nice to see you too, Elaine.
All right. If there are no additional questions or hellos for Dave, we all say hello. I'll go ahead and see if is Collister with us? I'm not sure that Kate would be, but is somebody else?
Madam Mayor, I don't have anybody listed and no one with their hands raised.
All right, so this is the chance, just one last chance for folks, if you're online wanting to testify on this, go ahead and raise your hand.
Madam Mayor, no hands are raised.
All right, so just to confirm, there's nobody here to testify on this item. I don't want to mess up my last hearing and have you, okay, great. We have one person in the room, so I just want to make sure she wasn't here for this. With that, if there aren't any further questions for Dave, I don't imagine there's more that you want to say. If okay, I'll go ahead and close the hearing. Is that all right, Dave?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, sounds good. I could read those lips that said yes. And so with that, the hearing is closed.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve CAR 20-21, a rezone from R1AS to R1CS with a development agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, clerk, will you call the roll?
Bajent,
Yes.
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dave. Good to see you.
Thank
And
you,
with
Madam
that,
Mayor and Council. I appreciate it.
if there's nothing further to come before council,
Madam Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Second.
we have a second motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. And I will say also echo Cody that it's really nice to have, we had 2 council members unfortunately that had to be absent. So that we could have the other 4 all in at once is lovely to have everybody in one spot.
Madam Mayor, I know the meeting is adjourned. It came to my attention earlier this week, maybe last week, that one person who comes to every council meeting and has the entire time I've been a council person is leaving us to go back to Michigan, and that's Haley Harding. So I just wanted to wish her the best of luck in her future endeavors and her travels, and to invite her to continue to tune into Boise City Council meetings anytime, because we'll be here.
Because we talk a lot about data, which I think is what she's covering next. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Patrick. And best wishes. Good luck to Haley.
Thank you, Haley. Good luck.
Have a good night, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.